Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard this Caledonian McBrain vessel. Please listen very carefully to the following safety announcement. In the unlikely event of an emergency, you will be informed by means of an emergency signal consisting of 7 or more short blasts, followed by one prolonged blast on the ship's whistle, alarm bell, or public address system. Your attention is drawn to the passenger emergency instruction notices, which are displayed at the muster stations and in other locations around the vessel. The vessel is fitted with lifeboats, life rafts, life buoys and other buoyant apparatus, all of which can be manually launched or will float free in the event of the ship sinking. The vessel is also equipped with sufficient life jackets, with donning instructions provided for all on board. In the unlikely event of an emergency requiring evacuation, you will be instructed by the master to proceed to the nearest muster station. The muster stations can be identified by a square green and white sign depicting a family group. At the muster station, if necessary, a crew member will issue you with a life jacket and provide assistance as required. At all times, you should remain calm and follow the instructions of the crew members at your muster station. Do not attempt to abandon the vessel unless specifically instructed to do so by a crew member. Thank you for your attention.
I've always felt that there's a special aspect to the connections between a ship and a shore or a pier. The ropes, the gangway, ties which, if you're a passenger, connect you to a piece of land. The link span, the huge structure up whose 2 slopes you trudge or sprint or push or drag something with wheels before the walk along the final horizontal 30 metres before turning sharp left through 90 degrees, feels, if you live on Bute, like the ascent to a portal to another world. It's always the beginning of something, a holiday, an adventure, a response to an emergency or a crisis, a shopping trip, and always something that takes you away from home. If you're sitting where you can see it, you watch the deck crew casting off, or you watch the fixed points, the streaks on the window, to catch the instant the journey begins. The moment the safety announcement starts is the moment you begin looking for the first motion of the ferry, a few inches, a few feet per second, then faster, the knots building to the 16.5 she'll hit as she reaches full speed down the bay and turns into the Firth. But always, it's the beginning of an excursion, a return trip from and to home. You'll have heard the one about the man who went to the train station and asked for a return ticket. "Where to?" said the clerk. "Back here," said the traveller. It took me a few weeks when I first came to Bute to stop asking for a return to Weems Bay, please. I mean, where else would the ferry go? Well, yes, they divert to Gurrock if the weather's bad enough. Then it sank in. If you live on Bute, ferry trips are always ultimately back here. I noticed that in the days after the 26th of last month, when we were still coming and going a good bit in order to finish off our move from the manse, I fell back into asking at the porter cabin at Weems Bay for a return to Rothesay, please. And of course that's even more absurd. If the ferry sails at all from Weems Bay, Rothesay is where it's going. So what was going on in my head? We still had this connection, a vestigial piece of our Rothesay home tying us to Bute. Yet more and more the centre of gravity of our lives was shifting, and yet the tie remained. It was severed on the 17th of March, when we finally packed the last load of stuff and drove onto the ferry. Or rather, it was severed at some point during the safety announcement, which didn't have to ask for my attention. My rapt attention was focused on the link span for the moment the movement began, which would mean that events I couldn't see from where I chose to sit, the retraction of the gangway, the casting off, had severed my connection. Not with Bute, because with Bute that doesn't happen, but with Bute as my home. I'll buy returns to Rothsay, often of course, God willing, and the returns will take me to a place with ineffaceable connections for me. But after that last casting off, there will always now be a return to back here. And back here, home, won't be Bute anymore. That's a lot to take in. It's exactly the kind of moment that you need to capture. And a mobile phone just about did that.